Hi everyone, welcome to Awaken into Love. I am so happy to be here today to talk to you about relationship OCD and relationship anxiety in the lens of holistic empowerment in a very empowering way to understand that you can use your suffering and your challenges in a way to awaken within yourself and your partnership. My husband and I have officially moved into our new home. I am in this little office downstairs with this window overlooking our gorgeous front yard, and it has been such a process just moving and coming to a new home. This is our first home together. And last week I talked in the YouTube video about how transitions can bring up a lot. And this saying that gets thrown around a lot that can be very confusing for people who don't feel that way, which is if you're making a right decision or you're making a good decision, then everything should always feel good and should feel blissful. And in that specific YouTube video, I debunked that and I talked about how I don't believe that that's the truth, especially for people who are very in tune with their emotions and their feelings and who tend to be a little bit more sensitive and tend to be more empathetic and in tune with a lot of people in the world and themselves. And I talked a lot about how it's so normal to feel emotions that can feel uncomfortable and just uneasy, but it can also feel even more uncomfortable when we hear different societal terms saying, it should always feel good and stuff like that. So I talked about my own personal journey with moving and everything that kind of came up, very surprisingly, to be seen in order to be integrated. And I talked about that on the last YouTube video, which I think you will like if you're especially going through a transition right now, whether you're getting engaged, more committed with your partner, getting pregnant, having a baby, moving, any type of transition, or you're thinking about doing that in the future, because I think that would be really helpful for you. In today's video, I really wanted to talk about the importance of not putting so much expectation onto our partner and a relationship to fulfill us and to fulfill our whole life. Now, of course, there's an importance in having fulfillment within a relationship, and I know that can be tricky for people with relationship OCD and relationship anxiety, especially in the beginning, because they throw their hands up in the air and they're like, I don't even know if I'm fulfilled in my relationship. How do I even know? So this is just a general term within relationships, but aside from relationship anxiety and RCD, I'm talking about something a little bit different. But of course, it is important to have fulfillment in relationship. Within that spectrum, I really believe that due to societal influences, due to cognitive distortions, and also just different trauma responses, there's too much of an emphasis around expecting our partner to do things and be things that actually set us up and our partnership for disappointment. And a lot of those things are actually considered kind of normal. We hear different things like our partner should be the one, but what does that really mean? It usually means that if they are the one, they need to fulfill so much within ourselves, or they need to be perfect, or we need to finally feel complete or finally feel completely fulfilled when we are with them. And the problem with these expectations is that, of course, expectations are generally healthy and needed within relationships. They are part of how relationships thrive and grow. We have different expectations of each other and also within ourselves, which is extremely, extremely important. But there are also distorted expectations that tend to cause this perpetuated state of suffering within ourselves and our partnership that again tends to be congratulated or celebrated unless you're speaking to a couples therapist or someone who's been in a long-term relationship or someone who really understands relationships well to tell you that these expectations are probably causing you suffering and disappointment. And a big one is really this expectation of our partner fulfilling us. There's usually this unconscious expectation that we put on our partner when we are feeling lack within ourselves, when we are not feeling in touch with our wholeness and our spirit, where we tend to project our own unfulfillment of our own life and our own self and our own lack of self-confidence and self-esteem onto our partner. It's a really great way for the brain to project and kind of point our fingers to something outside of us because it feels scary to take that responsibility and to take that ownership within us to do that work. So it's a lot easier to project and point our fingers to someone else, especially our most intimate partners, because we are most comfortable with them, usually. So a lot of times people, especially with anxiety, are feeling a lot of confusion within themselves. They might be going through depression. They might be going through a lot of challenging things. And what tends to happen is that they tend to look to their partner to not only save them and fix them, but to almost fill in the gaps of the places that feel really uncomfortable or feel really empty. And those little points, those little gaps, they're not holes, and you're not broken if you're feeling that. They are just little pieces within you that are asking for some light and some shedding. I almost see it as like dark little corners within our psyche and within our soul that are really asking for light to be shown down onto the darkness in order for us to see how we can start to come into those dark corners with compassion and love and to become curious with what is there. So, for example, a lot of stuff that tends to come up for people who feel that sense of unfulfillment is really actually their inner child asking for support and for play and for healing. And a lot of times, especially in our adolescent years and childhood years, we tend to really start to suppress our inner child, especially when our inner child or child self has gone through a lot of challenges or different sorts of trauma. That's a very normal thing that tends to happen to everyone, where we start to grow up and this childlike spirit starts to go away and we start to become more enmeshed into society, what society expects from us. We hear different external influences and believe that we need to be a certain way. And so we end up kind of suppressing that inner child spirit, that playful spirit, that creativity that gets pushed down. We tend to dismiss kind of the voices of the inner child. And I know that this can be a little bit triggering hearing, suppressing the inner child voices, but I'll talk a little bit about that soon. And we start to diminish really what the inner child is asking for. And in a lot of cases, what our inner child is really asking for is to come back into its own self, its own wholeness. And we talk about wholeness a lot in the ROCD Academy and community, which is really coming back to ourself, coming back to the things that bring us joy, coming back to the things that our inner child liked when we were younger. And I know a lot of people, when we work with different clients and members, they say to us, well, Kiyomi, Alexis, I feel like I don't even know what I want. I don't even know what I need from myself. And I don't even know what that feels like. And in the course and community, we talk about different practices that you can do. And later on in air, especially, we'll be talking about different type of practices to kind of come back into our inner child. But within the work and within the awakening of relationship OCD and relationship anxiety, it is about coming back into our inner child. It is about coming back into that little part of yourself, also known as our nervous system, and really tending to being with those feelings, accepting those feelings, bringing compassion to those feelings, and bringing a sense of love and a sense of wisdom to our feelings. So our inner child, aka our nervous system, starts to feel more secure and safe. So the incredible thing about relationship OCD and relationship anxiety is that it can allow us to come back into our inner child, to kind of shed those light on the dark parts of ourselves that have been seeking our love and our attention, those little nudges that end up becoming screams. So those little nudges before could have been like, hey, like I'm not really feeling that great. But then over time, we suppress those nudges because of our own different type of expectations of ourselves, that it can be very unrealistic. And also really this mirroring of our society that tells us to be a certain way. Again, those nudges can really be as simple as, you're really dehydrated, or you really need to drink water, or I really need to rest. It doesn't have to be something big like you're finding a purpose or you're finding something so big within your relationship. But when we start to attune to those signals within ourselves, then we can start to shed those lights on those specific dark spots. And when we do that, our inner child, or our nervous system, if you're thinking about it in a more scientific way, our nervous system starts to heal. It starts to become integrated, and we create new neural pathways. And then we start to tap back into the wholeness within ourselves. And when we do that, when we become more connected with our nervous system, within our spirit, within our inner child, there's so many different definitions to this. Some people say inner child, some people say our soul, some people say a spirit, some people just say our nervous system, which is more of the scientific way. Then we actually start to lessen our expectation toward our partner of trying to fulfill those gaps, of trying to fulfill those dark corners that are actually wanting that light from within ourselves. Now, the beautiful thing about relationship work is that our relationships can, of course, help bring that light onto ourselves, right? I really believe at Awaken into Love, we really believe that we're not meant to do this alone. We're meant to do this in community. And our society, this is a whole different topic, but I just want to remind you, our society, especially this Western culture, especially in the US at least, I can't speak for every other country, is really good at creating and enforcing the state of independence. And of course, independence is great, and the confidence in independence is great. But in reality, we are social creatures, and we really need each other, and we really need to be in a community form. And there's actually this one quote from Esther Perel that I'm going to pull up right now that is actually in regards to everything that I'm talking about. And I talked a little bit about this in the ROCD Academy, which she says so brilliantly. She says, so we come to one person and we're basically asking them to give us what once an entire village used to provide. Give me belonging, give me identity, give me continuity, but give me transcendence and mystery and all in one. Give me comfort, give me edge, give me novelty, give me familiarity. So we are expecting our partner, and this is another expectation that I wanted to go over, we're really expecting our partner nowadays to be that village, be that tribe, be that community, because we have actually become so disconnected from that as a society. Again, that hyper independence that is continually being perpetuated in society, that we need to do it alone and to ask for help is weak. Luckily, at least in my perspective, or the people I surround myself with, probably because I'm in mental health and I love, healing and spirituality, I feel like as a society, we've gotten better in terms of really normalizing the importance of support and actually not seeing it as something bad, but seeing it as something that is so crucial for our nervous system and our planet. So I do feel like we're moving more into this community-based model, but then at the same time, there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of shame out there when people can't quote unquote get it together by themselves, when they're literally not supposed to. We need to have each other. So a lot of times what happens is that when we're disconnected from our inner child and our wholeness and our nervous system, we then project to our partner to fulfill a bunch of stuff that is actually not possible. And a big one, again, is this aspect of community, which Esther Perel talks so beautifully about, which is around expecting our partner to literally be our mother, our father, our sister, our brother, our best friend. There was someone in the community today that I could relate to so well in the past. And I brought up Allison Armstrong, who I also really love. And this person specifically said, I wish that my partner could understand me exactly like my best friend and my mom. And what I said to them was that when we start to expect our partner to be our best girlfriends or best guy friends or best friends, then we are kind of setting ourselves up for disappointment. We talked a little bit about feminine and masculine polarity in that specific conversation and how that polarity is important to cause that sexual polarity. Talk more about that later. It's such a juicy and great topic for relationship work. We'll be doing a lot of that in air. But we really talked about this expectation that we have where we start to heighten, like hyper focus our attention all on our partner, and we're pointing fingers, and no wonder we get disappointed because our partner is literally not meant to fulfill all of those roles that we expect them to fulfill. So it's a really, really big thing. And I think that our brain does it so unconsciously. And unless we're very aware of our psyche and aware of the shadow parts of ourselves, we tend to get kind of caught up in this continual disappointment. Like, why isn't my partner fulfilling me or taking the space in my community? And not only that, this is really important. It's not only the community that we need. This really comes back to coming into our own needs and what we need as an individual within ourselves. For me, a huge need of mine is to be in nature. Our home is literally nature. I'm looking out the window and seeing green all around, which is literally so good for my soul. And if I'm not in nature a lot, or if I'm in a city all the time, and I was in the city a lot about a year or two ago, I start to get uneasy. I start to feel uncomfortable. I start to feel a sense of like agitation. I don't feel like I'm connected to my inner child. And so it's not only community, it's also the things that we need around us. It's our hobbies. It's the things that light us up. It's the things that make us feel a sense of purpose or aliveness. And I know, again, I brought up how some people do feel completely disconnected from that. They're like, I don't even know what I need. And that's okay. I really want to validate that for you, that it is so okay. I didn't even understand my needs for a really long time. I also know that this can be triggering for some people because people can go into, oh my God, what if my needs are something different from my partner? Or what if I need to leave my partner? Or what if we have completely different values? I know that that can be something triggering. So really be gentle with yourself here. It's such this exploration process. And when I say exploration, it's this gentleness that we go into, this curiosity and removing ourselves from the black or white, but coming back into this playful inner childlike behavior, which when we do that, we actually tap back into our wholeness and we put less pressure on our relationship. So we tend to move from this place of my partner needs to fulfill me, which is basically codependency, which is basically wholeness giveaway syndrome that we talk about in the RCD Academy and community. We talk about wholeness giveaway syndrome because the word codependency can be so heavy and it can have a lot of charge. So it's really this wholeness giveaway. We're giving away our wholeness. And so when we expect our partner to really be that and fulfill that, we actually become more disappointed and we have more anxiety and we have more obsessive thinking. So it's really as challenging as it is, especially in the beginning, because of that codependency that says, no, I want my partner to fulfill me. No, I want my partner to save me. No, I want my partner to be everything. And sorry, everyone, there's a plane going over right now. I don't know if you can hear it because I'm using a mic, but it did just go over. And I don't know why I'm sorry about the plane going over, but I guess it's the noise. But when we do kind of start to move away from that codependency, that wholeness giveaway syndrome, it can be freaking scary. It can be really, really scary because our psyche is like, well, what does this mean to move away from the state of codependence to coming more into this interdependence within my partner? So codependence is really this enmeshing of two individuals where this can even be an intimate partnership. It can even be a codependency even with your mom. It can be even codependency with your best friends. Like codependency goes beyond just our most intimate relationships. But when we start to move more into our wholeness, it starts to move away from that codependency and interdependence, which can actually be fucking terrifying. It can be really, really scary. So I really want to validate that there can definitely be a lot of resistance there. I remember when I was kind of starting to do this work and move more into my wholeness, there was a lot of freaking resistance. And a lot of people don't realize that it's resistance and they think it's, just, their anxiety telling them the truth. And I believe that we did do a big podcast with Manon about a year ago, all on resistance. So I highly recommend you checking that out. And we talk about resistance a lot in the RCD Academy, but the resistance is so normal and it's so part of it. And it's really part of moving more into our wholeness. So these two expectations can just be so big and so unconscious. They're like kind of lingering in the darkness of our psyche, as Carl Jung likes to call it, the psyche, the shadow parts of ourself. Which the shadow parts of ourself really can just mirror so much healing and integration, which is a whole new topic itself. So those two expectations are really big just in regards to expecting our partner to fulfill us, expecting our partner to be our community, our hobbies, our life. And another thing that I kind of want to touch base on is, of course, expecting our partner to be our savior, especially when we're going through the journey of relationship OCD and relationship anxiety. There can be this projection of our partner needing to save us, and it can be on the flip side, we need to save our partner, which can be that hyper responsibility. But that can definitely come up as well. So notice that within yourself if you expect your partner to save you and be your save all, because that is not possible and that is not their job, unfortunately, as the psyche wants it to be, because that would be a lot easier if our partner could just save us from everything. And then the other thing that I just kind of wanted to touch base on, it just kind of can seem simple, but it can be a big one, which is this expectation around our partner being perfect, our partner understanding everything about us, understanding all of our needs and our wants, when in reality, that is our job to communicate that with our partner. It is not our partner's job to know. It is not our partner's job to, number one, be perfect, because they're not. Usually this idea of wanting our partner to be perfect comes down to this projection, this internal projection of us wanting to be perfect, or feeling like we need to be perfect and we can't make mistakes, which is very, very fascinating because it gets projected in the shadow psyche. So it's very interesting. So those are a couple of big ones I really wanted to go over. And these are just big ones that are super unconscious that can kind of play into the mind, into the unconscious as we start to kind of do this work. And it can be a really good recognition and realization as we step into this journey of awakening. I mean, there's so much in my mind, even though it's so hard, juiciness, incredibleness in this awakening journey. I know it can feel absolutely scary, absolutely terrifying, and I'm not diminishing that one bit. I think that OCD and relationship anxiety can be literally the hardest thing that you can go through. Any other forms of OCD as well, mental health challenges in general can be so hard. But I also want to bring in this aspect that there are a lot of gems in the darkness, and there are a lot of different arrows pointing you actually back into your wholeness, back into your spirit, and back into your awakening. And I personally really believe that partnership, being with someone, really mirrors and will mirror so many parts within yourself that can be integrated. A partnership is the greatest representation for that, in my belief. That is just my belief. Doesn't mean that it's true. But that's just something I kind of wanted to leave off with and just kind of talk about that today in today's podcast. Many of you know that Alexis is back. We had talked about that a little bit ago. She's slowly, as we like to use the word, titrating herself back in. She was in maternity leave. She had a beautiful baby, Alba, who is almost a year old in September, which is so crazy. We're already in the month of June. It is summer over here. I know in Australia and New Zealand and that part of the world, if you're listening, because I know we have listeners from all around the world, it is getting cold over there. So bundle up, stay warm, start to integrate yourself into the season that you're in as much as you like. And this is being human, everyone. I'll talk to y'all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.